Okay, good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Bede. How are you?
Good, thanks.
What are we talking about today, Bede?
Now, what we're going to talk about today is the subject of what's necessary to understand in order to be able to, a sort of a foundation understanding in order to know what it means to be able to resolve the ego into Ishvara. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, good.
All right. And the thing is that what happens is that we've been born into this world, and we have all sorts of ideas built into us about who we are, who other people are, what the world is like, and what God is.
Mm-hmm.
These have been built into us. They're ideas that are what we in the West call conditioning. Okay,
And
so for example, like we're brought up, we might be brought up in a family with a certain political ideology. Do you know what I mean? So what happens is that those ideas get built into us, or we have got ideas that maybe life is very tough, or I'm not much good, or other people are this or that. So what happens is that we're born into a set of conditions, and these conditions are actually the result of these conditions, the impact of these conditions on us condition us in the sense that we get built-in reactions, whether they're mental or emotional or behavioral for that matter. Okay, so
these notions, they get activated in our current life as it is.
Yeah, good point. Like imagine, for example, I've got a spade and I'm scratching the spade on the concrete. Can you feel that?
Yeah, it's not a good sound.
But yeah, but you can actually feel again that kind of shivery, horrible feeling, can't you? Now, there's no spade happening now, but just simply because I mentioned it and you pictured it in your mind, what happened was a mental content that's been built into you, which is a kind of like an emotional sensation experience of distaste for that type of thing, got reactivated. All right, so but this is with everything. So what happens is that we've got lots of learned behaviors. They've been built in. So what happens is this psychological content has been built into us, and Swami Dayananda calls this personality, actually, that our sense of identity, our sense of who we take ourselves to be, constantly keeps coming into operation. And basically it's the result of conditioning, or causes and conditions, as the Buddhists would say.
From the past.
From the past. So what happens is the past in the present gets revivified. That means to come alive again. The word viv means life. So to means again, so in Latin. So it comes alive again constantly. So when I look at myself, what happens is I might look at myself, and what happens is instantly, just like when the shovel, when I mentioned the shovel, a thought will arise about myself. And what happens is I take these thoughts to be true. I take them to be true. So what happens is I look at myself and up pops a thought, but it's not just a thought. I'm not aware of it as a thought. I suddenly find myself looking at myself in a certain way. I might be depressed about what I'm looking at, or I might be elated. But it's a reaction. It's entirely a reaction. So I'm enclosed in a way of seeing, and I'm not aware that I'm enclosed in a way of seeing. I actually think I'm looking at reality. I think I'm looking at reality. This is the problem. This is the, how we in Vedanta we talk about the snake and the rope.
Yeah.
So what happens is that we're looking, here we are, there's a rope in the corner, but we think it's a snake. That's a mistaken notion, isn't it? It's a way of seeing. There is a rope in the corner. But I'm not aware that I'm having the thought that there's a snake. I'm actually having an experience of a snake, and I'm under the delusion that I think I am seeing and I'm alive to reality as it is.
You think you're conscious at that point?
I do. I believe I'm conscious, yes. When in actual fact, I'm not alive to facts. That's an expression that Swami Dayananda used. What I'm doing is unknowingly, there is a projection of thought, and that's why he says subjectivity is because I see it, it's there. So really what I'm doing is I'm looking at my world. It doesn't exist in reality. It exists within me, but it's projected as though it's external, and then I'm having an experience of it. And the same goes with other people. You know, when we look at someone, we go, oh, he's an idiot, right? That's a notion. But we're not aware we're having a thought that the guy's an idiot or the woman's an idiot. We're actually experiencing him that way. And so when we look at the world too, up pops thoughts, up pops ways of seeing, and these ways of seeing are the result of conditioning. And that when this conditioning becomes operative or active in me today, I think that I'm seeing. But in actual fact, it's just more of the same, being caught up and enclosed in my own world. And the same way when I think about God, I might think of God as a man in the sky with a beard that's, you know, controlling things. I might think there's no God. But when I'm looking at these subjects of self, world, and God, I've got a whole lot of built-in notions concerning that.
That is from the past, and I'm not aware of, that get activated in my life now.
Yes. So from the machinery of subjectivity is the coming alive again of past thoughts, feelings, and behaviors coming alive again in the present, as a way of seeing, right? And this way of seeing is also a way of being, because you can't separate it. Like, for example, if I'm suddenly angry at you and I think that you're a real SOB, right? What happens is that way of seeing will be embodied. In other words, my facial expression, I may have, because you might be my boss, I might hide it from you and put a smile there, but inside I'm seething. Do you know what I mean? Like when we're angry, the fists are closed, the jaw is clenched. So these ways of seeing that become activated in us, literally we are these ways of seeing at any one moment. And Swami Dayananda called this subjectivity. And he said, we're nothing, and when we're enclosed in this subjectivity, he says, we're nothing more than, we're like somnambulists, sleepwalkers. We think we're awake, but in actual fact, we're not alive to facts. In fact, someone once said to him, they said, you know, Swamiji, what's the meaning of life? And he said, well, the meaning of life is to live, obviously. It's not to die, it's to live. He said, but he said, what do we mean by living? He says, you're only living when you're alive to facts. Now, this for me was a profound thing. So it's only when I'm actually alive to facts. And he called this objectivity. How he defined this, he said, because it's there, I'm seeing it. So when I look out my window at the tree or the park, right, I'm seeing that park because it's there. I'm alive to the reality of the park. Now, often, a lot of times people, they love nature because nature tends, in the presence of nature, the machinery of subjectivity tends to go in abeyance. You know what I mean? Or how Swami Dayananda puts it, you know, the whole the judgment thing ceases. It goes into suspension. We find ourselves, our judgment suspended, and we find ourselves just simply alive to the beautiful sights and scenery and all of that stuff, right? But normally speaking, when we look at life, and when I say look at life, I'm talking about he in his psychology, or his whole teaching on self-growth covers every aspect of our life. It covers us, it covers other people, it covers the world, and it covers God. It's a total, he presents us with a total picture. But fundamentally, he said of primary importance is the reduction of subjectivity. Because when subjectivity comes in operation, I'm a snake looker. What I am seeing is not true. But from the inside, it feels that it is true.
That it is real.
It is real.
And we take that to be our life, this sort of false notions. We don't even know they're notions. We think we're awake in this.
We judge by experience. So how we experience life, we say that's how it is. So if I'm experiencing you, so it's this in our Western tradition, we have a philosophical tradition, particularly Plato and Aristotle, the difference between what seems to be, what is apparent, and what really is. And we have a saying in our tradition, knowing the truth that sets you free. Yeah. So that it's the only thing that can free us from subjectivity is becoming into conscious contact with what is. So, for example, when I'm looking at a snake, I'm caught in a delusion. Agreed?
Yeah.
Then suddenly my wife turns on the light, and I go, it's only a rope. The light coming in, in the light of awareness comes in. In that awareness, we can see what is true. We can see that there's only a rope. Yeah. And that's what liberates us from our whole experience of ourself as a reacting, struggling, striving individual. So it lifts, because when we are caught up in subjectivity, Swami Dayananda says that we're enclosed in what he calls personality. When we become conscious of the world as it is, he says we are a simple, we appreciate ourselves as a simple conscious person.
Just receiving what is.
Yeah, that's right, because it's there. The living presence, he called it the given. So the living presence of the given comes in, takes up all the room, and because I'm filled with the living presence of the given, I am conscious. It's a very profound thing. Now,
so as this basic person, I'm just accepting, receiving. I'm not resisting or thinking things should be otherwise or anything like that.
No. The essential thing about the quality of when I'm being a simple conscious person, I'm being alive to what is. Alive to what is. And the thing is that most times if someone hears about what Swami Dayananda talks about subjectivity, they don't necessarily understand what subjectivity is. And because they don't know what it is, they can't recognize it as a fact in their life. So one of the very first things we have to understand is that often we're actually enclosed in subjectivity. But we think we're not. I mean, for Swami Dayananda, if I think of myself, if I'm thinking of myself as a white Westerner, or as I'm thinking of myself as a Hindu, if I'm thinking of myself as a Christian, or I'm thinking of myself as a Hindu or as a Buddhist, or as an atheist, these are all self-notions that are not true. All notions I have about myself that I identify with, that I take myself to be, are all delusional.
So you're essentially, from my experience of my own life and others, from what I can see in the community, that this state of subjectivity or condition of subjectivity or delusional living in a false world, which I take myself to be.
Yep. And I take the world to be and other people to be. Yep.
That's normal for an average human, if you like.
Yes. And then the big question is, well, wait a minute. If we're enclosed in delusion, how do we get out of delusion? How do we actually, if we can't get out of delusion from within the delusion, so what is it that actually lifts us out? And then what happens is we come to a very interesting subject. It's called Shravanam. Now, what they mean by this, it's a Sanskrit word. What they mean is listening to a teacher who has the vision of reality, who is alive to facts. Okay? And so what happens is, when we were listening to Swami Dayananda, a very interesting thing happens. In the actual act of actually simply listening to a teacher like him, because he didn't give you another theory which would add to your subjectivity. He didn't give you notions that you would add. He used word. Sorry?
Not further conditioning.
No. What he did was he used words as a mirror. In other words, he would talk about life using words so that you would actually, when in the listening, you were seeing your life through his words. And you could come to an understanding of what life is. You'd actually find that you were listening to him. And what's interesting, in the act of listening, all of those notions that normally come into operation, the subjective notions, the subjectivity coming into operation, are suspended. So this gives you a possibility to go beyond delusion. This is a very good thing. There's nothing else that it is only in our Western tradition. If you heard of Socrates, he says, an unexamined life is not worth living. Unless we shift into this inquiry, this examination of what is actually in front of us, what we are looking at, what does it mean to be me? What does it mean to be in relationship with other people? What does it mean to be in harmony with the universe? What does it mean to become aware of God? Unless we make these discoveries for ourselves so that we actually can see, we're actually seeing. So in the state of listening itself, we have a possibility, because we got these faculties of spiritual discernment in us. Do you know what I mean? So we can actually see the difference between what appears to be and what really is. And this is the most wonderful thing. And so his teaching is not a teaching like a body of knowledge. What he brought was a method, if you like, of being able to rise up above the subjectivity so that you could actually discern for yourself the truth. So that you were seeing what he often would say, see the meaning, because he unfolded meanings. He didn't unfold the meanings in the scriptures. He used the scriptures so you could see meanings as they exist in your life. For example, he would use alive to facts. Well, we need to see the meaning of what does he mean by alive to facts. The presence of God. What does he mean by the presence of God? He was using an expression, being relaxed in the lap of Ishvara. What do we mean by it? So none of this, if it's taken as an idea, it's not going to work. But when you actually are seeing the meaning, he used to sort of have a pleading voice. You go, see the meaning. So he would talk using the meanings that are in the Hindu scriptures. He would create a word mirror, and in that word mirror, you would find yourself seeing what was true. But what's important is It wasn't like an intellectual thing. When you are seeing that way, your being changes.
Yeah.
Your being changes. It wasn't like I can read a book and get theories, but that's not going to help. But when you, for example, when you see what he means by the presence of God, and in right here, right now, as you are, you highlight that understanding that you have when you were listening to him. In that highlighting, you again see what he's seeing, and you find yourself lifted out of your subjectivity, and you find you are being different. And this is what he meant by knowledge. Knowledge for Swami Dayananda was is synonymous with transformation and being, because the way you see is the way you be. The difference is this seeing is not the result of conditioning. It's the result of, go?
And I don't figure it out.
No,
I just see it.
You see it. Then you may articulate it verbally and all of that stuff, but the basis of seeing is because it's there, you're seeing it. But in subjectivity, because I'm seeing it, it's there. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when it comes to the human problem of suffering, or what he means by resolving the ego into Ishvara, into the presence of reality. So resolving these false notions and these reactions and all of this into the very presence of reality itself. That's a very interesting subject. And that's what we're going to look at today.
Oh, good.
Okay. And again, how we're going to do it is we're going to look at it. We're going to look at the universe, the entire universe, through his eyes. And the interesting thing here is that what we're going to discuss today is we answer the question, what is it at all times are we looking at? You see, I might be looking at an idiot, but maybe that's not what I'm really, that's not what I'm looking at. Maybe that's not what's there. So we need a foundation, if you like, an understanding that covers every aspect of our life, so that we can come into harmony with what is.
Normally we take our experiences to be absolutely real, if you like, or not
True.
negotiable.
We take them to be true.
But it could be when I think someone's an idiot, they just said or did something I didn't like, full stop.
That's it, yes. Well, that's all that happened, yeah. But the thing is that when we look at life, to look at life and to see what really is an extraordinary thing, because when you're abiding in what he calls objectivity, when you are being objective, in other words, you are seeing what is in front of you, you are freed from your seeing being dominated by the past, and you're freed from your actions being determined by the past. This is the whole point. The whole point for him of karma yoga was freedom from the past. Okay, from the past. Because for Swami Dayananda, what's important was, what does it mean to be free while living, which is the definition of moksha. Now we're talking about relative freedom here, but the whole teaching is to bring about a person who is being free, not striving after freedom, not trying to get to freedom. Because for Swami Dayananda, the freedom that we're seeking is available right here, right now, as we are.
Yes.
It's not something that one day I'm going to get it. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, so what we're going to look at is we're going to look at this fundamental way of looking at our life that enables us two things that will enable us to be free of psychological or emotional pain or upset, and a way of looking that enables us to come into a harmonious relationship to what is.
Yeah.
So the whole point, this is the whole point, because have you noticed, and why I say, why is it important to have a harmonious relationship with what is? Because human life is full of conflict. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
People, they hate themselves, they're unhappy with themselves, they hate being what they're like. So there's this constant dualism of resistor and resisted, and there's a fight that goes between the two. Right? So I can be in friction with myself.
Yeah.
Right? I might be having thoughts and feelings that I don't like. Now, it's okay not having thoughts and feelings I don't like, but I fight with that fact. Dayananda calls it the ninja stance. We're fighting with ourselves as we are.
Yeah.
Or have you ever had antagonism or conflict with other people, Kevin?
Yes, and I've wanted to think they should change.
Yes, and we'll argue with them and all that. So human conflict is normal. We actually have an appetite for it, actually, but it's normal. So we get into friction with ourselves, friction. We get into friction with other people. We get into friction with the world as we're experiencing it.
So we think it should be different as well.
The world, if only the world would line up with us, we would feel so much better. Okay, so what we're going to look at first of all is his extraordinary vision of what we are looking at all times. Every single instant, this is what we're actually looking at. And this was, I found, quite remarkable, really, because its psychological ramifications in terms of resolution of suffering are extraordinary. Okay? Now, so first of all, what we're looking at any one time is we are looking at the presence of reality in a particular form. That's always.
Yeah.
So I might be looking at the presence of reality in the form of a thought that I'm having. I might be looking at the presence of reality in the form of, just from where we live, a park and the bay.
Yeah.
I might be looking at the presence of reality in the form of someone saying or doing something. I might be looking at the presence of reality in the form of sights and sounds and smells and touch. So I'm always confronted with the presence of reality. Always. That is always there. When I wake up, this is what I'm facing. Now, the word presence is an interesting word when we look at it in the Latin, the Latin elements that make it up. Pres means in front of, and ens means esse, existence. So what is existing in front of me? So at any one moment, what's happening is you're looking at the presence of reality that's in a particular form, and that form's always changing. It's just constantly changing. One moment I'm aware of a thought, then I'm aware of a sensation, then I'm aware of an emotion, then I'm aware of a person, then I'm aware, it constantly experiences unfold. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Experience unfolds. Okay? Now, in our Western tradition, we had a guy called Heraclitus. He was what they call a pre-Socratic. He existed before Socrates. And he was incredibly interested in one thing. He was incredibly interested that that the world seemed to be, you know, full of a tremendous order. That it wasn't just simply random. It was just, and he called this the logos, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that, so, and our early thinkers were very interested in what they called order. Order. Now, just to give you an idea what we mean by order, imagine that you've got a whole lot of matches and you pour them, you just dump them on the table and they just randomly arrange themselves, you know what I mean? Just as a heap, in a heap.
Yeah.
That's not order. That's not an intelligible order, is it?
No.
That's just simply a heap of stuff. But if you line them all up in a row, right? What happens is you're ordering them, aren't you? You're making an intelligent arrangement. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're making an intelligent arrangement. And if someone comes into the room and they see those matches, they would know that someone has ordered them. Would that be true?
Yeah.
That behind that order is a conscious being of some sort, intelligence of some sort. Because something can't give, as St. Thomas Aquinas says, something can't give what it hasn't got. The heap doesn't turn in by itself into an order. But the presence of intelligence made it possible for this intelligent arrangement. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so what we have is this intelligent arrangement, right? And so as human beings, we can recognize this order, can't we?
Yeah, but often we don't.
Often we don't. Now, what in our Western tradition, St. Thomas Aquinas, he said, you know, order is an arrangement of parts directed towards an end. And Aristotle, he said, it's the disposition of many in relation to one. Okay, so the very fact that there was one line there and you organized them all, that you just, you know, the disposition of each match was within a line, wasn't it? Okay, but I like Swami Dayananda's definition of order because it's a lot simpler. He basically, what he means by order is an intelligent arrangement. Okay, that's what he means by order. So he considered the entire universe an intelligent arrangement. I mean, we're looking now at the universe from a big picture, aren't we? Okay, because if you understand the big picture, the details look after themselves. You don't have to know every little detail. But one thing that you're always confronted with is an intelligent arrangement, but it's an arrangement of parts, but it's continually functioning, isn't it? It's functioning. So, you know, when you let's take it, so not like matches, let's take a look at the human body. It's an intelligent arrangement which is continually functioning.
Yeah.
Okay? And every aspect of our functioning as a human being is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. Can't help it.
Yeah.
Can't help it. If you've got a car engine, it's an intelligent arrangement. Is that true?
Yeah.
And all the parts work completely, perfectly in conform. Can't help it. A car engine can't help but engine.
Yeah.
A human body can't help but function in perfect conformity with the intelligent arrangement it is. Do you see what I mean? And you actually can't even expect it to operate differently. You might want it to when the car conks out, but even that is it's conforming to the arrangement. When the car conks out, it's conforming perfectly to the arrangement that is there. If it breaks down, it doesn't work. All right. So now we get to the point. things don't just happen like a heap.
Yeah.
There's this
So dumb particles or atoms or whatever you want to call don't arrange themselves in an intelligent form as such as a human
by
being.
themselves, no. By themselves. Intelligence organizes the particles. Okay? The intelligence of the universe, as in our Western tradition, the Stoics were very impressed with the Logos, and what they wanted to do was to come into harmony with the Logos. Right? There was, before, at the time of Christianity, the biggest religion was Stoicism. They all were, a lot of people are very interested in this whole thing of the intelligent universe and how do you come into harmony with it. You know what I mean? And I must admit, Swami Dayananda, when it comes to this, has some very interesting things to say. Now, so what happens is when we're looking at our present experience, right? When we look at the universe, right?
Yeah.
What we're looking at is the presence of reality. That's first. There's always the presence of reality in the form of a functioning universe, which is in perfect keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. This is set in stone. This is set in stone. If I go outside on a cold day with not enough clothes on, what happens?
You'll feel cold.
Can I depend upon that fact?
More than likely, unless you've been doing exercise.
It's not going to change, is it? It's not going to change. Whereas if I warm up and run, I might warm up and feel warmer. Again, that is because this is how it works. The whole thing is, you always look, the way it works is the way it works. So given, if you do this, there is a natural and inevitable consequence.
Yeah.
In our Western tradition, Aristotle used the word necessary, something that cannot not be. If you go outside in the cold without enough clothing, you will get cold. It's necessary.
Necessary consequence.
Just necessary, yeah. Can't help it. Okay? So we can, now there's so many laws operating in this universe that we can't, science discovers some of the irregularities, right? But we're looking at it from the big picture. We're looking at everything you are looking at, given the intelligent arrangement, can't be different from what it is.
Yeah.
It just can't.
And if it wasn't the case, you wouldn't discover any scientific laws, because there'd be chaos and you would get nothing out of chaos.
Yes, it'd be a disordered heap. So what Swami Dayananda says is that everything, now he doesn't say the world is perfect. This is not everything's perfect. No, he doesn't say that nonsense. What he says is that everything is perfectly in conforming to the laws. Like, when you get war, well, given human greed and given the propensity to dominate resources, you're going to get war.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's perfect, but it's perfectly in order.
Given the way of thinking.
Given that way of thinking, given the fact that human beings are cut off from the light, life, and fullness that is God, that has a necessary consequence.
Yeah.
All right? It's just a necessary, if you move away from the light, it gets dark.
So it's not like God does war. It's because of the absence of the light.
Yep.
In a person's heart or soul or mind, whatever.
The absence of knowledge, yep.
there's necessary consequences of that.
Of darkness, of ignorance. And that ignorance is dramatized by human beings in very unfortunate and painful ways.
Yeah.
But it's still perfectly in order. It's not perfect. It's perfectly in order. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to come across the most, it was the most incredible thing for me to learn this. You see, I always thought there was inside and outside, right? So I thought there were processes in me that were messing up my life, and then there's the outside world.
Yeah.
No. Now, according to Swami Dayananda, everything you are looking at is this functioning order. That includes your thoughts and feelings. This is incredible. Sorry?
Includes your reactions to your thoughts as well.
Everything. So basically every appearance that you're looking at, the universe is made up of appearances. All these appearances are unfolding according to laws. And all these appearances are perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement that this universe is. So there's no inside. So what happens is when we're looking at our life, there's no thoughts in me, inside me, inside my. If you notice that you're always looking at appearances, presence in front of you.
We take it to be inside. That's common.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. But what happens is that when I'm looking at the clouds in the sky, those clouds are moving and are shaped according to meteorological laws, aren't they?
Yeah.
Now, I don't understand the complexity of those laws. I just know that that is still a manifestation of the laws. And it's perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. I don't have to know the details. But the fact of the matter is, because of certain conditions meteorologically, I've got clouds in the sky. Clouds come and go. Now tell me, do I, am I responsible for those clouds in the sky?
No.
Like if I get, oh my God, it's cloudy and I wish it wasn't there and it's my fault that they're there. I wouldn't say that, would I? Why wouldn't I say it's my fault?
Because you don't think it's part of you or inside you or you're responsible for.
I'm not taking. It's the functioning of the universe. It's not. That's outside my hands. Is that true?
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Have you ever felt bad about the thoughts or the reactions that you're having, or maybe you think you shouldn't be reacting this way, or I should be in a different condition, or I should be feeling different thoughts or having different thoughts? Have you ever felt that?
You certainly have, Bede.
Yeah. The fact of the matter, though, is that the way thoughts and emotions arise in you, just like the clouds, are perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement this universe is. So your thoughts and feelings are also part of this universe, and how they work is completely outside your hands. They're not, in one sense, yours.
No.
You know how we say I and mine is my thoughts? Well, yeah, we can say that in the vernacular, but what we're looking at is we're looking at the presence of reality in the form of a functioning universe, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. Swami Dayananda calls this the psychological order.
Yes.
Because he says there's the material order, there's the psychological order. So what I'm saying here is that everything is given. everything that you're looking at is the presence of the given.
Mm. You're also saying that, just from what Ruby said, the types of thoughts I'll be having be quite different whether I'm enclosed in subjectivity or alive to what is.
That's exactly right. Basically, when we're a simple conscious being, when we're actually being conscious, quite lawfully, the quality of our experience undergoes a change. When we're enclosed in subjectivity or enclosed in personality, by necessity, that means that from being personality, we project a world. That's unreal. That's a law.
Yeah.
You see, so here we're confronted with this. We're constantly confronted with the presence of reality in the form of a functioning universe, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. This is what we're always looking at. This is, now, the reason why this is so important is that the only thing we have choice over is action. Is action.
A lot of people feel very responsible for the thoughts they have.
They do. They get very upset about that. And what they do is they try and change it. Now, can you imagine me? I'm looking at all of these cars moving around the street, and then I'm trying to mentally change it and wishing they're not resisting it and trying mentally to do something about the living fact that the cars it's congested and moving around. How futile would that be?
Be futile, but we think we have control of our thoughts.
We do. We think that because we think we're responsible for our thoughts. We think we're responsible for what we're responsible for is our action. We can learn to be responsible, actually. Do you know what I mean? Because go.
Oh, we can shift out of a certain way of thinking.
I don't want to go into that yet. So what the important point here is that whatever arises in it, let's say, for example, right here, right now, I'm feeling really scared and afraid.
Yeah.
Now, suddenly I can object to that fact. I think I shouldn't be afraid and scared. Why can't I get myself together? Do you see how that's futile thinking? It's a non-acceptance of the order.
And it's also just, you're caught in that, if you like, subjectivity. You can't get out of subjectivity from subjectivity.
No, and you're resisting yourself. You're resisting the order. You see, and you're wishing that the order would be different. Now, also, even you wishing the order would be different is part of the order.
Yes.
So, some people think, I shouldn't have likes and dislikes. You can't help to have, it's part of the order to have likes and dislikes. That's not true. So what happens is that what we're looking at is always the presence of the given.
Yeah.
And this present experience of mine is unfolding according to laws. So when I'm ever looking at something, I'm aware of I'm alive to what is happening. But alive to what is happening also includes being alive to the reactions I'm having. Both of those things are completely outside of my hands. They're out of my hands. What's happening and my reaction to what's happening is what constitutes my experience. Is that true?
Yeah.
That is not a psychological problem. Failure to understand that has a psychological consequence. See, when I understand what Swami Dayananda means, that I'm always looking at this functioning universe, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is, when I'm actually seeing that as a fact, so here I am, I'm upset, Okay, it'll just be, I'm upset. I won't be objecting to the fact that I'm upset because I know that it can't be any other way given the order. I won't engage in the futile effort to try and change my state. But I can, the only thing I've got choice over, is choice over action. All right, the only thing I've got choice over. Now that's it. That, by the way, this doesn't mean helplessness, because it's a little bit like, I, for a long time, thought, before I met Swami Dayananda, I thought I was really psychologically stuffed up. You know, I thought I was really in a mess psychologically. There was something wrong inside me that needed to get fixed. There was something twisted or something. But he gave a talk. It lasted for about 3 weeks. He talked about this subject. And I don't remember the exact words, but I remember the understanding I had after it. Given that we are cut off from the presence of reality, the living presence of the given, and we're caught up in our own world, right? So instead of being in Ishvara's world, we're in our own world.
Full of ourselves.
Full of ourselves. Given that, we can't help but be miserable. It's a bit like that idea in our Western scriptures that if the branch is cut off from the vine, it can't help but wither. That's the law. Mind you, if the branch connects itself to the vine, what happens to the vine? It regenerates, doesn't it?
Nourished.
Yeah, that's the law. That's the law. So the laws are producing the withering. The laws are also producing the nourishment. So my problem was not psychological. My problem was, because I was cut off from the living presence of reality, that light, life, and fullness that is God, I can't help but be miserable. It's not that God's punishing me, but being cut off from God is punishing. So for Swami Dayananda, there's a very interesting thing. The very fact that knowledge is possible, the very fact that I can come to an understanding of what is, that has a lawful consequence. It has a lawful consequence. So what happens is that, but it's still within the laws. But I don't determine the laws. Now, this is where it gets interesting. If I don't determine the laws, for Swami Dayananda to come into harmony with the laws was very important. Exceedingly important to come into harmony with the laws. Because that will have a consequence for our life. And just to give you an example, the third striving, in the Vedic teaching, there are 4 strivings: the striving for security, the striving for pleasure, the striving for Dharma, and the striving for God, or freedom, absolute freedom, the absolute. This striving for Dharma, what he calls the striving for Dharma, inside us, we have a striving to be in harmony, which is to be actually loving, to be accepting, and we have a striving to be caring, because he says that the basic, the core, the dynamic form of the simple basic person is love and care. Now that's the law. So as a simple, so I have this dynamic in me to be loving and caring. That's just the way that that's given. I don't create that. That often I can be moved by love and by care. Okay? Yeah. And they call that the striving of Dharma. Okay? Now, when I conform my actions to loving and care, what happens is a feeling of harmony. I cease to be in friction with myself. if I've got a striving to be loving and then I'm acting unlovingly, can you see how there's a rupture?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm actually going against the order. You see what I mean? I'm not in harmony with the order. I'm in friction with the order.
And there'll be a consequence of that.
A lawful consequence.
Which won't be pleasant, won't be harmonious.
Won't be harmonious, no, because I will build disturbance in myself. So this is an understanding. It's still within the laws. Swami Dayananda talks about, you rub your back against the bark of a tree and you keep rubbing hard because you're itchy. And then what happens is you start to pierce the skin. And he said, if you rub up against the order, it rubs up against you. Now, that's an understanding. That means that if I have a motive, a way of being in the world, which is unloving and uncaring, in other words, not dharmic, I am in friction with myself. There's a rupture between the core of me and how I'm living, and that will have a profound psychological effect on me.
Yeah.
But that's the laws.
And then in that case, when there's a rubbing up against the order, I'll have very, upset thoughts, angry thoughts, depressed or sad thoughts about
all sorts of things. Yes,
I'll take that to be real.
Yeah, I won't be comfortable being with myself as I am. I'll be a mess inside. So that's why it's so important to learn how to be in harmony with the laws. For example, he said, for emotional states, he said, first of all, don't fear them, and second, welcome them. Now that sounds mad. What do you mean welcome them? Well, when you're walking in a beautiful forest, you're just simply open and you're receiving as is what's happening, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're accepting what's there. And in that acceptance, is there any friction?
No.
So the same way with fear, paradoxically, when you totally and utterly just simply accept the state of fear, it tends to go away. Because the resistor and the resisted, the moment you are totally accepting, you as a resistor fighting the resisted also disappears.
You're lifted out of that way of thinking or being.
Yes, you are. Yeah. Because he said a beautiful thing. He says, when you fully accept what's in front of you, you find yourself being acceptable. So what he's saying is, self-acceptance depends upon your acceptance of the order. You don't have to like what's happening. If you've got a headache, you don't have to like it. But if you don't accept it, you're going to be resisting.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So for example, so what he's saying is that if I do not conform my life to Dharma, if the mode of my life in the world is not loving and caring, there's a rupture in me between the way I'm living and what my core striving, my core dharmic striving. See, when I'm moved by Dharma, life is much better. When I'm moved by the desire to be in harmony, and then when I'm moved to act in caring ways to myself and others, my life goes a lot smoother. So also when you don't take care of others and you're not loving and caring in relation to other people, you come into friction with the environment, don't you? You come into friction with other people.
And yourself.
And yourself. Because Swami Dayananda says, if you take care of Dharma, if you look after Dharma, Dharma will look after you. So it's not, the fact that it's all laws is not helpless. In fact, it's very good. This becomes incredibly useful because we understand that, I have to not try to mold the world into my own likeness and image.
From
But subjectivity.
Yeah.
What I need to do is the first and primary thing is accept the fact of the order. Swami Dayananda used to use a phrase, let Ishvara be Ishvara. So you're always looking at the presence of reality in the form of a functioning order, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. That's what we're always looking at. But our task is that we need to come into harmony with it. This is the thing, he had another beautiful saying. You can only see what you know. You can only be aware of what you know. Once you know that you're facing a functioning order which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is, when you really know that, you are freed from resistance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I abide in his vision right here, right now, as I am, let's say I'm just a bit messed up, a bit unhappy and disgruntled, I understand, given my psychology, given my past, this present moment can't be any different than what I am. So that's the law. So I'm not going to resist that. But also I have the spiritual understanding now, because I've listened to him, that if I remain with myself as I am, without any form of friction, then not trying to change anything or resist anything, I will be lifted out, and actually I will find myself being acceptable. Because I am accepting, I will find myself being at home with myself. You see, I can only be at home with myself when I'm at home with what is. That doesn't mean I like what is. It means that, because he says that the basis of reaction is non-acceptance of a fact. He made a statement that there are no problems, there are only facts.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So when I'm in communion with what is, and I'm willing to accept what is, then I can be at home with myself, because I'm at home with the order. That doesn't mean I like it.
Yeah.
But so it also works that, I'm here, I'm upset, and if I sit with myself quietly and I don't resist, and I leave myself in the hands of Ishvara. I leave myself in the hands of Ishvara, but I'm not resisting, so that the resisted has gone away. I will find myself being acceptable. This is what I call Dayananda magic.
Yeah.
This is a profound psychological understanding, which we'll go into when we meet next time. But you see, because I'm always looking at something in front of me. It's not me. I'm upset, therefore I'm psychologically upset. No, I'm just facing the universe. Do you know what I mean? I'm not facing me. I'm facing my psychological functioning.
Yeah.
I thought that I was facing me.
And that's in your psychological functioning will be in accordance to a psychological orders, which will be, if you're in
That's
subjectivity,
That's
you're
right.
going to be experiencing the world in a certain way, which just isn't true.
This is not true. That's right. And also the thing is that, you see, I take my life and being normally to be my thoughts, feelings, sensations, and actions. Is that true?
Yes.
That's what I take my life and being. But for Swami Dayananda, the life and being that I am is God. That's my life and being. He said, for example, an appointment with yourself is an appointment with the Lord. So when we're looking at it in front of us and the thoughts and feelings, we're no longer rooted in ourselves, rooted in this world of changing appearances. We are rather rooted in being. And for Swami Dayananda, being and God are synonymous. The is that everything is God.
And it's only in being that all these appearances become, if you like, they're not determine your happiness, they're incidental in terms of whether you're at home with yourself or...
Well, we'll go into that. With understanding, it's only in the light of understanding can we cease to be confused by taking our life to be our psychophysical functions. So that we become rooted. He says we're rooted in God, or we're rooted in Ishvara instead of rooted in ourselves. See, so Kevin, your problem is you are full of yourself, Kevin.
Yes.
That's your problem. You're full of yourself. rather than being full of God.
That's true.
He says another wonderful thing. He says there has to be less of you and more of Ishvara. In other words, when you're filled with the presence of God, which is also being filled with the presence of God in the form of a functioning order, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is, you change psychologically as an individual.
Absolutely. I think he's being very polite there. Needs to be more of Ishvara and less of you. I think he means a lot more.
Absolutely, yes. He uses another term, living an Ishvara governed life.
Yes.
So when our attention and devotion is towards being in harmony with the order and being filled with the presence of God, when we're filled with the presence of God, we will find ourselves being moved emotionally. We will find ourselves wanting to be in harmony and wanting to be caring. And this is what he means by emotional maturity, because through the understanding of God and the practice of karma yoga, which we'll be going into, what happens is emotional maturity is when we are moved. We're still moved. We're still moved by love and care, but that's a lot different than being moved by our binding desires to be famous, to be this, be that, to be,
to be special, to be
all of that stuff, yes.
Praised, to be
yes. To be contributed to be treated properly, all of this, all of these infantile, that's why it's emotionally immature. These are when I'm moved to drink alcohol because I'm addicted, or when I'm moved to brag so I can be liked. That's what he calls emotional immaturity. But he says that when we want to do what we need to do, we are emotionally mature. In other words, we are moved emotionally differently. And that basically, in one sense, because I want to do what I need to do, the will that is God and my will is one and the same, actually.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean? So we come into harmony with God. And
the
what?
reward of that is that you're in harmony, you're at home with yourself when you're doing that.
It's not possible to be at harmony with yourself, like me and my unique self being all happy and content in myself. We are only at home when we're rooted in God. That's our real home. And that's not shifting and changing like this changing world of appearances, which is coming and going. And you see, when you look at in our life, as we get older, we understand that everything ends, everything dies. So if our sense of identity is rooted in this changing world of appearances, all we can look forward to as a destiny, no matter what we do, no matter what books we read, how clever we are, how much money we make, all we can hope for is old age, sickness, and death. The whole purpose of religion means to rebind back to our source, is to be able to be rooted in God, which is eternal life itself. That's the point. All right, so that's all I wanted to cover today, was the fact that, this profound fact that he unfolded was that at any one moment, no matter what you're facing, you are facing the presence of reality in the form of a functioning universe, which is perfectly in keeping with the intelligent arrangement it is. Next time we'll go into a bit more of what that means, but I just wanted to create that as a foundation.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin? That's all right. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.